welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we are diving back into our Devil's Kisses series by Gemma James. If you have not already listened to books 1 and 2, The Devil's Kiss and The Devil's Claim, those links will be down below in the description section. Go ahead, look at those videos, and then you can come and join us as we jump into our third book, which is called The Devil's Wife. We're going to fast forward about almost a year after the wedding. So Kayla's running late. She's coming back from an outing, okay? So she's freaking out because she's late. You know, old girl has rules. So she gets home and she's like, oh my gosh, I hope he's not there. I hope he's not there. Thankfully, he's not there. So she runs in. She preheats the oven because she had like a casserole she just had to warm up. So Eve goes to watch TV, and all the while she's getting text messages from Ian asking to speak with her face to face. So she finally agrees. Then she deletes all of the messages. So then Gage comes home. They kiss, and he tells her that he's taking away her yoga classes from her for next week. And he tells her he has a surprise for her. So now her yoga classes apparently are her time to spend with Simone, whom Gage doesn't really like. And so Gage says that, you know, they'll revisit her yoga classes after next week. So Gage is going to give her weekly punishment. So apparently on Fridays, she gets 20 lashes on the butt. And he says this is to remind her who she belongs to. I don't know. That's what he says. Seems a little weird to me, but hey, the thing is, when she gets punished, though, she gets wet. So, I mean, hey, they like what they like. So she gets her punishment. And then, of course, he bangs her hard and he finally lets her come. The next morning, she's having breakfast with Gage and Eve. And she asks Gage if she can go get the dry cleaning that she missed, apparently, from the day before. And so they go in the room because they have this pact where they're not going to show that, you know, master sub type of relationship in front of the kid, which is, you know, smart. So they go in the room to talk. She gets a lashing, however, for forgetting to get the dry cleaning. But what he's really upset about is that she hasn't been present in the relationship. Well, my thing is, if she's not present, that means something's wrong, right? She's missing something. And you're not willing to kind of look at what she needs. You're not asking her, like, what do you need? What is it that's really bothering you? You're just saying you don't seem present and you need to fix it. Okay. So what do you think you're going to get? I don't know. So, you know, you want control. This is the cost of it sometimes, because even though she likes, I think, giving him the control, she's still someone that needs a little for herself, and he wants to take like all control from her. So it's like, well, there's a piece of her that's missing. So this is what you're going to kind of get. So she goes to meet Ian at a coffee shop, and of course, she's like a whole ball of nerves. And we find out through this meeting that she ran into Ian on the elevator because she volunteers at the hospital where Eve was when she was sick, and she visits with the children. Now, I will say this. There are plenty of hospitals in that area that she could have volunteered. I do understand like the sentimental value. This is a place where, you know, these people took care of your child, you know, when you couldn't be there, and X, Y, and Z. I understand that. I really do understand it. But a part of her had to want to see Ian. She had to know at some point you are going to bump into him. She had to. Whether she knows it, you know, it could have been something she wasn't even thinking about. It could have been subconscious, but somewhere deep down, I feel as if she knew there was a possibility she could have ran into Ian. The dude works at the hospital, you know. She gets to the table, and the first thing he asks her is, you know, are you going to get in trouble for coming to meet me? Now, he knows the answer to this question. Don't even know why he asked it, okay? You know she's going to get in trouble. So then he asks her, you know, well, why did you come? And she says, I don't know. So then he asked to see her on Monday at the hospital, and she was like, that's not a good idea. So he had like more of a commanding tone this time when he kind of talked to her. And it was something she wasn't really used to from him, but of course it turned her on because she does like that, commanding, domineering thing. She likes that. So when she was trying to leave, he grabbed her in an embrace, buried his face in her hair. She felt a connection that she had missed, as well as her old self, who didn't have to ask for permission to go get dry cleaning. So again, that's where there's a part of her that's missing, but she's terrified to probably say something to Gage because she knows the answer is going to be no. That's what he's more than likely going to say. So then it's like she finds ways to do stuff she wants to do. It's hilarious. So she gets home in time and she finds out that Gage has sent Eve to stay with Leah's mom. I think Leah's like one of her Eve's friends. It pissed Kayla off because she was like, how you just gonna send my kid to somebody else? Yes, they're married, okay, and I get that, but it's still, I don't know, when it's the person's child, it's just a fine line you gotta walk with that, like text her, hey, I'm gonna send her over there, I need to talk to you, like something, give her a heads up, but just don't do stuff after and then be like, yeah, I did that. It's okay. So he of course tells her, I'm your master, and what I say goes, So then he tells her to go to the basement. So she's like, why am I getting punished? But in her brain she's freaking out because she's like, oh my God, he knows where I was. So he says, you're not being punished. So he wants to spend the rest of the week teaching her about edging, which to me sounds like torture and punishment, but apparently he claims it's like the most intense, gratifying type of experience. Okay, go with it. All right. So the next day, she's home and Gage is still there, and he told her to wait for him on her knees in her room. So while he went to take a shower, she called Simone. Simone's a nurse at the hospital. And so that's why the whole thing of her going to do yoga with Simone kind of worked, because Simone covers for her because Simone knows she's at the hospital with the kids doing volunteer work. So Simone is just kind of like, are you coming? And she's like, no, I'm not going to be able to come. And she's like, Emma's going to be really upset because she was really looking forward to seeing you. And that did crush Kayla. Now, Simone's very vocal about how she feels about Gage as well. She thinks he's too controlling. She feels like Kayla needs to stand up for herself. Because, again, even though this is not a conventional type of a relationship, it's like still, I'm sorry, we both in this, we both need to be happy. And if you see that something's not quite right with your person, you kind of maybe want to try and like, okay, well, what's wrong with you? So Kayla gets off the phone and Gage is like, were you talking to Simone? And she was like, yeah. So then he starts pinching her nipples and he keeps doing it, but he doesn't fuck her. He tells her he's going to be calling her later on to come into the office, like later that day. So she goes to the office when he calls her and he tells her to go to the second floor women's restroom and touch herself. So then while she's in there, she hears the office gossip, which is that Gage apparently is bringing back Catherine and that they are apparently still fucking. So Kayla's fuming and she goes into Gage's office and she's pissed because she was like, I thought I was the only one. And he says, you are, but can you say the same thing to me? I was like, whoops. She yells out yes, even though like a small part of her heart will like always belong to Ian. It is what it is. So she asks, why are you bringing back Catherine? You promised you were going to transfer her. And so he drops a fucking bombshell on this woman. He tells her that Catherine's son is actually his and that he found out a couple of months ago. So she's at like a loss for words, and he tried to come near and she kept backing up until she like hit the door. And then he got her to like bend over on the desk, and he stuck his finger like up her ass, and he wanted her to tell him to fuck her, but she was like, no, let me go. So then when she went back to the door, he said, if you leave, you will have a massive punishment waiting for you. And she told him, I may not come home. And I like that, okay? Because it's like, he wants her to tell everything when it happens. What did you do? Who did you talk to? Where were you? But you mean to tell me you found out you had a whole fucking kid and you say nothing and you've known for a couple months? That's fucked up. We're married. This is not some bullshit. We're married. That's fucked up. So she goes straight to the hospital to go see Emma. She runs into Simone, who wants to know what happens because it's written all over Kayla's face that something's wrong. But Kayla's like, I'm not in the mood to talk right now. We'll talk about everything later. So she goes to Emma. She reads to her until she falls asleep. Ian comes and asks her, can I speak with you? So he takes her to a room, locks the door, and says he just wants to talk. So at first he was kind of attacking her, and was like, has he started in on Eve? Like, thinking he's hurting her and telling her, it's effed up for you to bring your, child around him. Like, really going in on her. Then it's like he changed his tone and he started asking her, like, do you love Gage? And start saying how he's mad at himself for not stopping the wedding. And so then Gage starts blowing up her phone. And so she eventually answers and he says, where are you? Kayla says, I'm on my way to go pick up Eve. And he's like, I already picked her up. So, he had to, as soon as Kayla left, I think Gage went and picked up that child. Because he kind of knew, like, she could very easily leave and go get that child. And then she's gone. Like, that's the most important thing to her in the world. She loves Gage. But Eve, that's the child. That's a whole nother level of love right there. And he did that to make sure she would come home. Because he knows she's not going to, like, stay away and be all out, and leave the child there. He knows that. So he was like, let me go get this baby. So she'll come home. So then he tells her to get her ass home now and that he may take it easy on her. So she goes home and he tells her to sit next to him. And she doesn't really want to do it. So he grabs her, sits her on his lap. Of course, he's turned on because the rebellious side. This is what's so fucked up. The rebellious side of her does turn him on, just like the submissive side of her turns him on. So she just turns him on no matter what she does. So he was saying that, he was sorry and that he had wanted to tell her once she was pregnant again. Because remember, she had lost the baby. And the last book we reviewed. So he didn't want to make her feel bad because it's like she lost the baby and, Catherine has his son, He didn't want to make her feel bad. Still, I don't care. That's still something. You ask for 100% honesty, but yet you don't give it either. You tell people when you want to tell people. So it is what it is. So, he told her he's still going to punish her for walking out on him, but there's not going to be any lashings. So then he asked her where she went, and she was like, I went to the mall and just kind of drove around. I just wanted to get my mind together. So then he tells her that he knows, she'll accept, his son as a part of the family. And then the door rings, and it's Catherine and Connor. That's the child's name. He had made plans for Catherine to take the kids for game night to her place. Okay, this is a problem. Here we go again with you making fucking decisions and she doesn't have a fucking say in it. Like, it was like bad enough when he like kidnapped the kid and took her on a plane and the child's with Catherine. I don't even fuck with this individual, right? And now you've decided again, we're going to have date night, so that's who's going to watch the kids. What? That's just fucked up. And Kayla's sitting there like, the fuck? My kid ain't going nowhere with her. And he shoots her a look of like, don't you dare contradict me in front of her. And I was like, jeez. Again, the same way you called her, you could have called on, shoot a text. Explain, say something. But he keeps springing shit up on her, and that's what I don't like. That's what pisses me off. So he tells her to go get ready, puts nipple clamps on her and a vibrating anal plug in her, and then tells her to get dressed for their date night. So they go to dinner, private booth. He tells her, come and sit on my cock. So at first she was like, no, someone's going to come in here. But he was like, the only one that should matter is your master's cock. That's it. So she gets up and he tells her to fuck him. And then he turns on the vibrator. And then he asks her, what she wants. And she says, I want to tie you up again. And I want to gag you. And I want to suck your dick for hours and never let you come. So she, of course, doesn't come because they're still edging. And so neither of them are going to come into their actual anniversary date. She goes to the hospital a few days later because she can't stand being like in the house, not doing anything. So she goes to meet Simone for lunch. And while she's waiting, Ian comes up to her. He's still upset and he's still bitter. So she was like, the choice has been made, Maybe we can't be friends. And that's, I think that, Ian, that we're probably not going to be able to be friends. So he leaves, and then Simone comes and talks to her. And Simone can kind of see that there's some type of vibe between the two of them. Like, clearly there's some type of history. And so Kayla kind of spills her guts and tells her about the past with Ian. So Simone tells her to tell Gage the truth and to stand up to him. And if he can't accept it, then she and Eve can always come and stay with her. And I was like, oh, that's a good friend, She not telling you to do something, blow your home up, and then you're screwed. Like, no, like, you can come stay with me. So she goes to Gage's office, and when she opens the door, Catherine is sitting on Gage's desk, and Kayla loses it. She yells at her. She's like, get the fuck out. And Gage is like, think, and she says, I don't want to hear it. And Catherine says, he doesn't jealous women. Little does she know, he loves that shit about her. He just doesn't like it on Catherine or other people, but he loves it on Kayla. So Kayla tells her, is always welcome, but you are not. So they go back and forth, Gage and he tells her that he was actually setting up a custody schedule with Catherine. And she's like, you couldn't do that at the courthouse like normal people? And she accuses him of fucking her. And he's like, you're the only one I want. And he says it to her again. Can you say the same thing? Then he tells her to go home and wait on her knees for him. And finally she leaves. She gets home and she starts to cut her hair. And she has like long red hair. And so she cuts it to like shoulder length. So Gage comes in. He sees her. And at first he had his belt in his hand, and then she kept cutting her hair, so he realized that's not going to do anything. And he was like, on your knees, and she's like, no. So she spewed off how it's okay for him to be jealous and upset, but she can't. And he was like, I've given you everything. And she says, no, you haven't. And you don't care about what it is that I need. And she's like, I want to leave when I want, and I want to be able to get a job if I choose to, and not have to ask for permission. So she throws her brush at him, and then she thinks that was stupid because she just gave him a weapon. So then he yells at her that he knows that she has been going to the hospital and was waiting for her to tell him. I think, honestly, that's what those punishments on Fridays were about. Like, he says it's because he wants to, like, remind her that she's his. I don't think it's that. I think it's because the minute he found out, I guarantee that's when those damn punishments started. And she wouldn't break, though. She wouldn't say anything. So he starts hitting her ass with the brush, and then he makes her recite their vows, and he yells at her, why him? Like, why do you have to be in love with him? And she yells out, I love you more. And that was like the first time she had admitted to like actually loving those two men. And he had to kind of blink back tears because that hit him, So the next day they go to the cabin. This is their anniversary. I think this is right before their anniversary. I think their anniversary will be like at midnight or something. So they go up to the cabin. They've barely said anything to each other. He makes her lay on her stomach Because remember, he did, beat the ass with a damn brush. And so he eats her pussy until she comes. But she lasted because she held out until like after midnight. So they come to an agreement that he will submit on their anniversary every year if she takes anal play off of her hard limits list. So she agrees, and he tells her that she can't go back to the hospital again or she will not like the punishment. So she handcuffs him, blindfolds him, gags him after he keeps talking shit. So then he tells her she's enjoying this a little too much. And the whole time she's like, oh, I see why he likes this, being in control. So she stuck a finger up his ass and sucked him hard but wouldn't let him come. So she tells him that she wants more of him and that he used to make love to her, but now all he does is just fuck her. So then they eventually bang and they come together. So after this, something has definitely changed between them. He still did the punishment on Fridays because he said again that he just needed to do it. She gets a call from Simone a few weeks later and meets her for lunch at a pizzeria. And Simone tells her that Ian has cancer and that he's stopped treatment. She gets the address from Simone and she goes to his place. He tells her he didn't want her to know. He just wanted to go away peacefully. And so she tells him he can't leave her. And he was like, you made your choice. And she says that, she can't help how she feels and that she does still have love for him. And so Ian admits, that he wishes he would have gone to Texas sooner. They start kissing and she jacks him off. And she wants to do this with him. And he was so weak, he falls asleep like right after and she just holds him. So she cleans him up and she begs him to go back on chemo. And he's like, it's not working. I've tried and I'm tired. And so she asked, what could she do? And he said, divorce him. But he knows she's not going to do that. So he told her not to tell Gage about what they had done. But she knows she's not going to be able to keep it from him. So then Ian asks her to leave and just, he just doesn't have the strength, to fight her about this. He's just like, I'm tired. Just go. So she realizes this is goodbye. So she breaks down, of course. So she calls Simone and had her pick up Eve and asked her to keep her for the night. And, Simone's like, are you going to be okay? And she's like, I'm fine. So she goes home and is waiting on Gage in the basement naked. And she has the bullwhip out. And he comes in and he asks her what's going on. And she tells him she's sorry. And she starts crying and tells him she went to see Ian. And he was like, you fucked him. And she says, no, but I did other things. And then she tells him he has cancer and he's refusing treatment. So he makes her tell him like what exactly she did. And she tells him through sobs. And then he leaves and says he needs to cool off, but tells her to wait for him on her knees and they better be red when he gets back. And so she waits. He comes back 3 hours later and helps Kayla up to the bed. And he tells her that he went to see Ian and that he convinced him to go to a special treatment center out of state. And that if he came back, he would punish Kayla for it. So, that's a surefire way to keep him away, So he told her he didn't want her grieving him and that she could never talk to him again. And he told her that he was taking her keys and her cell phone and that it would be a cold day in hell before he gave them back to her. He also told her that he knew she still loved him and that he had stolen her from him and that he would do it all over again. So he punished her and she had to beg for the punishment. It was crazy. And then tell him she deserved it. And he made her stay in the basement that night. And she felt that distance between them like it was just growing. Like this is going to get probably worse. So her punishment was also that she couldn't come at all while she's on punishment. So for 8 days, she had to stay in the basement. The only time she was allowed out was when Eve was home. But then at night, she had to go back down to the basement. Her punishment is going to be that she has to be in a fucking cage until Ian is out of treatment, whether it's dead or alive. So she tried to protest and was like, if I do this, will you forgive me? And he said, we can talk about forgiveness then. She's in the cage. He starts fingering her and like asking her questions like, what did you let him do to you? Like, did you let him, you know, kiss you? Did you let him, you know, taste what's mine? Did you let him touch what's mine? Like, he, you know, kind of maniacal. He kind of went kind of a little loony right then for a moment, but he wouldn't let her come. So she breaks after 3 days. She becomes a little hysterical, which I can imagine being in a fucking cage, right? So Gage was working from home and tells her he isn't going to work, you know, that, you know, her doing all that is not going to work for him, you know. So he removes the ball gag and she asks him if he will let her lay in their bed tonight. And he said he'd think about it. So that night he lets her out and she goes to their bedroom and he lashes her with the bullwhip. Then he holds her and she sleeps that night. So then 3 months, 2 weeks, and a few days later, he lets her out of the cage. And she asked why he was doing it. And he said, this portion of your punishment is over. And she wanted to know what happened to Ian. But Gage said it doesn't matter if he lives or dies. So then he takes her down to the basement, ties her to the St. Andrew's cross, has Catherine come in and unzip his pants. And just before he could brush his cock to Catherine's mouth, he tells her, take a picture, Kayla. Because if you ever defy me again, I will fuck her right in front of you. I will take her mouth, her ass, her pussy, and make her scream my name over and over. And then he dismisses Catherine, who was disappointed, of course, because she thought she was gonna fuck him in front of Kayla. So they get back to some form of normalcy. And while they were fucking in bed, he asked her if he had her whole heart. She says yes. And then she asked him, was she forgiven? And he says she was already forgiven because she had taught him how to love and to forgive. So she was forgiven before she ever did anything. So I have a slight rant about this shit, okay? So this is my thing. Okay, she's wrong for jacking off the brother. I will admit that. They're married. That is wrong. I'll give it that. But the problem is, you won't allow the woman, and you never allow her to deal with her feelings. You keep trying to strip her away from someone that you are terrified she will choose over you, because in theory he's like a better person, right? He's not as bad of a person. Well, in his younger days he was kind of awful, but as an adult, Ian is supposed to be like a better person than what Gage is, right? So Gage has to keep doing these things, like from in the previous book, taking the kid, you know, in the middle of the night, because if I take the kid and put the kid on the private jet, then she's got to come with me. Then when they get back to his home, telling her, I want to marry you, she says no automatically. And then his reaction is, well, then you stay down here. So then now you're keeping her away from her kid again. You keep using her kid a little too much. And that's the part that I think is fucked up. I do think he loves Eve, but the problem is all he knows is control, right? Because in his brain, the reason Liz died is because he didn't have control, right? She was fucking Ian. She was doing other shit and she died. So his thing is, I have to control everything about you so that way I can keep you safe. And that's not how it works. Because when you sit up there and you know, put so much pressure on a person like that, they can't handle it. And so again, another thing too, Ian, I am sad that he has the whole cancer. Super sad. But my thing is, why the fuck, if you were so crazy about her, then when she went to Texas, why when you would call her, the conversations were only about, hey, how you doing? Are you okay? That's good. Why didn't you fight for her for that year? While that man was locked up, that would have been the time for you to step up and say, hey, let's really talk about this. Let's really deal with this, to give yourself a fighting chance, since you have the inability to let go, right? That would have been the perfect time. But it's like you didn't want to fight until Gage gets out of prison. Now you want to fight. It's almost like you only want her if she has to make this other, like, it's like it has to be this choice, right? It's almost like he feels as if unless I do this, you know, side by side with Gage, I'm not going to get a true answer. But it's like, at this point, do you see, Gage does not play fair at all. Gage will kidnap. Gage will do whatever it's necessary to get what he wants. And yet, you're sitting by just, he effed that up. Because I feel like that would have made a huge difference in how, and maybe she still might have chosen Gage. I don't know. But I feel like at that point, he could have looked at it like, you know what? I put my everything into it. I really tried. And when Gage wasn't there and I put all that effort into it, she still didn't choose me. I think at that point, he might have been able to let go a little bit more. But it was like, because of how he did it, I'm like, that's your fault. And it's like, she got put into the situation because of their bullshit from when they were younger. And she had to suffer for it. So she got pulled into this. And then everyone's upset with her because she has all these fucking feelings. It's like, y'all fucking bothered me. I didn't bother nobody, you know? Like, even with Ian coming around at the hospital, she could have very easily started talking back up with Ian and everything like that. But her focus at that time was definitely on her daughter. It wasn't about Ian, you know? But she could have. And she wouldn't have been in the wrong. She's a divorced woman. But it was like, you all want to come at her at the same time and then get upset with her because neither one of you will allow her to deal with her feelings. And that's where they're both fucked up. And him being upset with her, that's another reason I think he was like, nope, we finna get him some help. He is not finna die on me, because he knows the guilt and the affection that he probably still holds for Liz. And he will be damned if Kayla's gonna have that affection for Ian. Like, in death. You know what I mean? Like, oh no, we're going to make sure you survive. And also, they said in this book, he's apparently, like, he's been going to therapy and stuff like that. But here's the thing. The Liz girl probably wasn't that great if she was banging your brother. Because she knew that was your brother. So you had all this undying love for this woman and all this pent up shit about her. And I don't even think she felt what you felt. You know, so it's like, you really need to let that portion go and kind of understand, like, this is not that same situation. This is a different person. He's involved because this is the situation that you wanted. You wanted to bring someone in that you could hurt him with, and then your ass fell for the woman. And now you're terrified. It's hilarious. And that Cage shit, oh no. See, this is where I feel like I agree with Simone. Why can't there be a conversation? I understand the whole, you know, the submass, you know, type of a relationship. I understand a little bit about it. Let me say it like that. But it's supposed to be a comfort level for both of you, right? You're supposed to be able to tell that person what you're comfortable with and what you're not. And if in the relationship, this ain't working for me, then she should be able to come to him and say, hey, listen, this got to change because this is not working for me. Because what it appears when I read this, it seems as though she's acting out because she feels like she doesn't have a voice to say what she really wants, because it's not going to be met with any, how do I say it? Like, he's not going to care, right? He'll just say, it's what I say. I'm the master, it's what I say, and that's what goes. Those are the type of answers she's going to get. So she does things that are going to, you know, incite some things in him, right? And it's like, it shouldn't have to be that way. Again, I still think she was wrong for jacking off Ian. You know, she admitted to it right after she did it. She was honest about it. But it's like, I don't know. It's just, they all just need to go to therapy. Oh my gosh. It's so crazy, but it makes for a great read. So the next book in the series is called The Devil's Spawn, and we'll jump into that one next week. Drop down in the comments section, in the discussion board. Let me know what you think of these characters, and it can be from all three books. Just let me know what you think so far. As always, I truly do thank you guys for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.